Thomas Sowell explained visually. Read the books. Watch his various YouTube clips. But if sometimes the concepts are hard to get or you don't have time to read the books, I'm here to give you visual aids to help you understand some of these concepts. Please subscribe, share, like the videos. Today we're going to do the left's war on the family. I know it sounds like clickbait, but I couldn't find a better way to describe this passage from Dismantling America. Highly recommend this book. If you like watching the various YouTube clips of Thomas Sowell, then you'll love this book. It's a collection of hundreds of essays, real quick, easy. If you don't have a lot of time or you don't have a big attention span, it's basically got all the hits in it. So the New York Times reports, most women today do not have husbands. Oh, wow, that's interesting. That's shocking. Well, let's actually look at the numbers. Let's look at the data and let's see where you came up with that. And so first of all, 51% of women do not have husbands. Okay, well, yeah, technically, that's a fact. That is technically a majority, but that's awfully misleading when you say most women don't have. We think of a higher number, not 51%. So, all right, well, okay, fine. Technically it's right. Yeah, but, well, you kind of, there's a bit of an agenda here, possibly. Well, let's actually look at the numbers. Where did this 51% number come from? So we calculate it, we look it up, and we find out that when they were doing this data, they were counting females as young as 16, 17-year-olds. Well, of course, 16-year-olds don't have husbands. Of course, 17-year-old females don't have husbands. They shouldn't have husbands. So you're counting that towards the 51% that gives you the ability to say most. Oh, who else were you counting? You're counting widows. Well, they would like to have a husband. They would like for their husband to still be alive, but you're going to count them as people choosing not to have husbands? It's incredibly misleading. It's not an error. It's not by accident. It's intentional. They're driving an agenda. They're driving a narrative. Women see less need for the old ball and chain. Yeah, I could see a 16 and 17-year-old. What are you talking about? But why are they doing this? Well, before we get to why does the left hate marriage or hate the family, let's just continue this disinformation campaign that they have always, you've heard this, half of marriages end in divorce. You've heard this all the time, so that basically all Americans believe this. But if you ever stop to think, like, wait a second, I went to school with a bunch of kids. All the kids we went to school with had parents. And guess what? Half of them weren't divorced. There were parents that got divorced, but across the school, it wasn't half of the families. That wasn't the case. Think about it. Look at your town, look at your school, look at all the kids you went to school with, all of your classmates. Were half of them the children of divorce? No, they weren't. This number is... It's not true. But how did they cook this up? How are they able to work it into? So, well, technically it's true, and then they lead it towards their agenda. So here's how they get the number, 2006. And you can do this for various different numbers. From Dismantling America, we're going to take this number for 2006. That 6.9 out of 1,000 people got married that year. Also that year, 3.2 out of 1,000 also got divorced. So like, oh, well, that's half. So half of all marriages end in divorce. There is a problem with this number. So what they're saying is, or at least they're leading us to believe that, look at all the marriages in 2006. Half of those marriages ended in divorce. Therefore, half of all marriages end in divorce. There is a problem with this number. We're looking at, in 2006, all of the new marriages, but we're pulling our divorce data from all the marriages from all of the previous years. We're not just looking at 2006 marriages and then who of these marriages ended in divorce. They're saying, all right, here's all the marriages in 2006, which could only happen in 2006. And all of the divorces, which those marriages could have started in 2005, 2004, 2003, 2002. You see what we're doing here? We're not pulling from this half. Let's look at it visually. So 2006, there's the 3.2 out of 1,000. Well, that pulls from people that could have got married in 2006, people that could have got married in 2005, people that could have got married in 2004, 2003, 2002, throughout time. So it's not a half and half thing. Another example, again, so this is not just the 2006 marriages, and how many of those 2006 marriages ended up in divorce. It's 2006 marriages and 2006 divorces that are pulling from the thousands and thousands of marriages from all these different years. So it's not half and half. It's very misleading. Let's go further. Okay, so what they tell us is remember before, it's 7 marriages, roughly 3 divorces every year. And so they interpret that as, well, it's every half of marriages end in divorce. So let's say that 7 out of 1,000 marriage, 7 out of 1,000 people get married, 7 out of 1,000 people get divorced in 2006. So based on their logic, then based on those numbers, then all marriages end in divorce. If we said 7 to 3 before, for 2006 data to 2006 data, we said, well, that's half of all marriages. So this would be all, but you would know, like, no, that's not the case whatsoever. It would be very misleading. Even if in 2006 you got this data, you still wouldn't say, based on 1 year, that all marriages end in divorce. No one in the right mind would look at a 1-year sample of data that's not really connected and then say, oh yeah, well, I guess if they're getting divorced and the number of people getting married are the same number, that means all married. No one would say that. No one would believe it, but that's what we say for half. And the media reports this, and they're not ashamed of it because they have an agenda. It's not a mistake. It's not an accident. This is not bias. This is an agenda. It's a narrative. It's a twist that they do on purpose. There's a lot of different ways to calculate it, and there's not really necessarily a good way to find, well, what is the actual divorce rate? The best number you can probably do is find it based on a cohort and say, all right, take all the people born in 1990, who was married, and then how many of those people that were born in 1990 also got divorced. So you can look at a cohort through time, and we see that the number's probably closer, maybe less than this, less than 25%. It's not 50%. It's nowhere close to half of all marriages end in divorce. Better yet, if you like marriage, if you like the family structure, if you like traditional institutions and think that they're sacred or important, well, if you do, there's good news because the divorce rate has dropped. But you're not going to hear that in the corporate press. They're not going to give you that message because they need to destabilize this institution. They need to destabilize traditional structures. And the number one is the family unit. So that's why you've been told, well, half of the marriages are ended in divorce. Most women don't have husbands. No, half of the marriages do not end in divorce. And the divorce rate is declining. That's good news for people that believe in traditional way of thinking. That's bad news for the leftist, the progressive, the new world order types. So why is it that the media, that the leftists, that the progressives hate families? So there is some valid reasons why a leftist or a feminist or a progressive might hate these family units because marriage is a social restriction imposed by people, also imposed by governments. It does limit freedom. And I tried to find a picture where the ball and the chain was on the female, but Google Images has gotten really woke. If you Google image stuff, it's insane how woke it is. Douglas Murray writes about this in Madness of Crowds. But one thing they have missed is ball and chain. The patriarchy is still strong in Google Images when you look up ball and chain because it still has the ball and chain attached to the man and not the woman. It should be for this conversation attached to the woman because they see marriage as a restriction on the freedoms of women. Going back to Jean-Jacques Rousseau and the unconstrained vision that man was born free and everywhere he is in chains. This is the criticism of social restrictions that we create, the restrictions that society puts on people to keep them down. The unconstrained vision doesn't like this because they see man as infallible, that we can achieve anything. We just need the proper resources and technology, and we are amazing. Whereas the constrained mindset, which tends to be more conservative, says, no, we're not. We're evil. We're vicious. We cannot be trusted. We are selfish, and restrictions have to be in place to control people, to make sure that we are okay. Now, maybe it's somewhere in between, but the unconstrained vision says we need to get rid of these restrictions so we can finally be free and really realize human potential, which would be the leftist point of view. And there is some to agree with, like the social restrictions of marriage and these limits placed on women throughout the millennia has not necessarily been great. But where we are today is clearly much better than during caveman times, during the Middle Ages, pre-Enlightenment. It has gotten better, obviously, but you can understand why leftists would not like these social restrictions, why they don't like this traditional family unit. But you can also understand that, well, it's not that bad anymore, but we can understand their point here. But the argument for the constrained vision, the conservative, the traditional view is, look, through these social restrictions, whether you like them or not, they create order. And through this order, we can then create societies which are advanced, where we cure, you name the disease, we're on the moon. None of this takes place if it isn't for social restrictions that limit our freedom. You have to limit some of the freedom. You have to get rid of some of the chaos to create some order, some stability, so that civilization can progress and advance. That's the traditional view. The unconstrained mindset says, no, we don't need that. We can achieve all these things. You can read about that in Sowell's Conflict of Visions. Now, the leftist says, no, we can create this advanced society. We don't necessarily need the traditional family unit. We don't need these restrictions. We have a new vision for the world. So to get there, that's where this whole idea of killing the family, killing traditional institutions comes into play. I mean, look, this new world, this new society, build back better. They want to build a new society. That is the view of the left, and that is the view of socialism and, Marxism. It's to build a better society. It's right there, build back better. They want to build a better society. They believe that they can. They believe that through technology that they can do it. This is the unconstrained mindset, whereas the traditional people say, I don't know about that. All right, so in order for the leftists to create their new society, obviously you have to destroy the old way. You have to destroy the traditional institutions and the traditional beliefs. You cannot, they are completely at odds with each other. We'll get more into that later in the video. And the main traditional unit that you have to destroy is the family. If the leftists and the progressives are going to reimagine society, they're going to build back better, they're going to have to build their own society, and getting in the way of that is the traditional family unit. So imagine the leftists want you to join their new society where it's an egalitarian, utopian society. Family units are going to say, you're a crazy person. No one's buying this. So right here, you can see the traditional beliefs are going to be at odds with, so the leftists over here are going to be at odds with the traditional view. They have to start over and create a new society. The traditionalists, the conservatives are always going to fight against this. All right, you're going to reimagine society. You're going to rewrite the rules. I'm not cool with that. I'm fine with the traditional. I want to conserve what we have. I don't want to blow it all up for some fantasy dream of yours, this unconstrained vision. So the leftists have to get rid of them. And the best way to do this in the long run is to destroy the family unit, because the family unit is the base of the traditional view. The church pretty much has already been destroyed. They've accomplished that. The next and really final thing stopping us from a leftist progressive utopia or dystopia is the family unit. That's why we get all of the anti-family messages in the corporate press. If you can take apart the family, reduce their power, reduce the family's influence, then the left, the state, the media will control the message and will design the next society. It's all about convincing these kids, the next generation. It's about playing the long game. And if you can stop the family, if you can split the family, you can get to the kids grow up, and the kids go ahead and indoctrinate the next generation. You teach the kid grows up, and then he carries the message forward, right? You can get to Butters if you break up mom and dad. Then you can get the message across. Then you can create the next generation of woke, the next woke, create the next woke. And then from there, we create this utopian egalitarian society. Even though we've seen what happens when you do this, you don't quite get the egalitarian society. Just look at 20th century history, mainly over there in Europe. You can even look at South American countries as well. It just doesn't work out that way. But if the family stays together, if the family unit stays strong, you get strong male figures, strong female figures that basically say, get out of my house with this nonsense. Stop telling my kid this crazy nonsense. We like the traditional views. We like our traditional beliefs. We like our traditional family values. And so then that shuts down the left's movement towards re-envisioning society. So it is a war. The left cannot get to where it's going as long as the family's together. You break the family up, and then we are on the fast track to whatever dystopian nightmare we want. And this was in the original version of the Communist Manifesto. Engels wanted to put in the end of the family. because he knew you break up the family, that's how you create this new workers' paradise or this new society. Marx said, we better take that out. I don't know if the people are quite ready for that one yet. And we might not be ready for that yet, but it's in there. It is this base of Marxist belief that you have to destabilize that. If you're going to create a central planner that's going to centrally plan society, that central planner is going to overrule families. Families don't want that. Do you want to plan for your family, or do you want a central planner to plan for your family? Do you want to make plans for your children, your children's children, or would you rather a central planner and the government decide what will happen? Of course you don't want a central planner to design this. And they know that, and so they've got to get you out of the picture. But before we get there, before they recreate society with central planning, they got to blow up the old one. You have to destroy the traditional belief system. You have to destroy the traditional values. And at the core of conservative and traditional belief is the family. And that's why the family is constantly under attack. That's why the family is constantly undermined by the institutions, by the government, schools being that main institution as well. That's why. It's a long game. So let's break down really the difference in beliefs. So your core leftist belief is collectivism, which is all of us. We're all equal. We're all together. We're all going to look out for each other. Whereas the traditional belief, the family is more us, not all. What is a family? A family is a single unit. It is not many units. It is not a community. A family is a single unit. And the importance of that family is for the parents to take care of the children in that unit and to care for that unit, not anyone else. These are at odds. Collectivism is about all of us taking care of all of us. The traditional belief, the conservative belief that is the antithesis of this leftist progressive idea, is that no, my main goal in life, my meaning in life is to raise my children and teach them to be good stewards of this earth so that they can raise children and so that they can, go on and have wonderful lives and protect themselves. That's different than taking care of everyone else. And then the rift's going to get deeper when we look at it. So again, family. Now, that doesn't mean that you completely ignore your community. You can take care of your community next, but the traditional conservative view would be the first focus is family, not everybody else. Whereas the leftist is, it's take care of everybody else. There is no family. We've broken up the family. Now, here is the bigger wedge in between these two. This is the biggest of all, this concept of egalitarianism. And for leftists, it's that everyone is equal. We are all equal. Families, traditional belief, the conservative belief, does not believe in this. Oh, well, we believe in equality. No, you do not. A family, the traditional belief, does not believe in equality. Now, we do not mean racism. We do not mean discrimination. The traditional belief, the conservative belief, does believe in equality under the law. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about egalitarianism. Traditional belief, yes, we believe in equality under law. Leftists are supposed to believe in equality under law. They technically often don't. But we want law to treat all people equal. We're all equal under law. What we're talking about with the traditional belief not being egalitarian, we're talking about property. The family, the traditional, the conservative does not believe in equality of property, whereas the leftists do. A collectivization of property, a sharing of property. The traditional family unit does not believe in this equality. This is a major difference between the leftists who want to destroy the family so they can re-envision society and the family who's saying, no, we are not going along with your social engineering. We're not going along with your new order. We're not going along with your vision of the future. And the reason that the family, that the traditional, that the conservative, that the libertarian, the reason they refuse to follow the leftists and the progressives is property. And you're, oh, well, they should share. No, they shouldn't. We don't want our kids to have equal. We work hard so they have more. That's what a family unit does. The mother, the father, invest all of the resources into their children. And they don't do that so that their children can be as equal as everyone else. You do that so that your children can have more than everyone else. That is a key conservative traditional belief. If you work hard, you're doing it for your family, to help your family, because you want better, because you want more for them than the kids down the street, but also because you want more than them than you have. You don't want your kids to be as equal as everybody. You don't want your kids to be equal to you. You want your children to be better than you and their children to be better than them. You want improvement. You want growth. You want equality under the law, but you do not want an equalization of property. You want your kids to have more books. You want your kids to have more access and opportunities for education. You want your kids to have more educational experiences at museums and parks. You want your kids to have more athletic opportunities, and you work hard so that you get this. This is a difference between what you can get under a traditional belief system and a leftist belief system, which wants everything to be equal. You want your kid to have more access to health and healthy foods and healthcare. And if you work harder, you believe that you should be able to get that. That's the traditional view. That's the conservative view that has existed for millennia. These are traditional views, meaning they have existed through time. This has existed through all human beings. And to just abandon this, to throw this away because of a new vision is reckless, it is ridiculous, and it is childish. To say, oh, this is the system that has been working for not just thousands of years, but, well, yeah, thousands and thousands of years. This has been the system. This is the system that allowed us to get a man on the moon. Oh, let's abandon that system because we have a vision of an egalitarian utopia. Well, you tell you what, take your vision, go buy some land over in whatever country and give it a try. Go ahead, because this happened in the 19th century throughout the United States, where people tried to recreate their communes and utopias, and every one of them failed, and they will continue to fail. Whereas the traditional view that we are trying to conserve continues to work. And it continues to win this battle against the media trying to destroy family. Now, we're not saying that you shouldn't volunteer. You can also volunteer. It's not dog eat dog, let the losers lose. The family can help themselves, but also volunteer and help out people that are in need. This isn't as ruthless and cutthroat as we want it to be. We're just saying that a key belief, traditional belief, conservative belief is, this is mine. It's not anyone else's. Whereas the leftist says, that's not yours, that's ours. It's all of ours. But I worked hard. I set this up. No, that's the big fight here. And the egalitarian leftists can never really win on their views upright. It doesn't make sense. They can't win. But they have to find some way to destroy, to destabilize the traditional view. And it really comes down to this egalitarian versus anti-egalitarian. It's not about equality under the law. It's about equality of property. They think we all should share. They think the traditional view is, look, this is mine. That's yours. I'm not going to take your stuff. You don't take my stuff. Seems like a pretty easy plan. It's what we've been following for thousands of years. Why all of a sudden try to figure out how we're going to share all this stuff? Seems pretty crazy to me. And most people say, yeah, that is crazy. So you can't convince me. But what you can do is, if you break up the family, you can sure easily convince some silly kids. Break the family up. Once the family has been destroyed, then the state, through their public institutions, brainwashes the kids. The kids don't have parents enable them to understand what's going on. I mean, you can read John Taylor Gatto writes about this, Thomas Sowell writes about this, Hoppe writes about this. Marx wrote about this. They knew what was going on. The central planners break up the family, convince the kids into the new way of thinking, the right way of thinking. And you brainwash them into collectivism, gobble, gobble, one of us, one of us. That's how it happened. That's why you have the attacks on the family. The ideas don't hold up. The egalitarian fantasy for most Americans, what are you talking about? We're going to create this giant commune of the United States where we're all going to share things and everyone's going to be equal. It ain't going to work. You people are Looney Tunes. And most Americans get that. So the ideas don't stand up on their own. They just can't pass any tests of reason. So what has to happen is left has to play games and fight little battles of destroying families, tearing them apart, and then once that happens, then you brainwash kids who don't know any better. And when the kids are only given one side of an argument over and over and over, they never get an opposing view. And if they ever do get to experience an opposing view, it's a straw man, or it's also given by the people who don't believe in it. So imagine you're in a jury and you're hearing opposing sides. The defense presents their side, and the plaintiff, the prosecution presents their side. Well, what happens is the prosecution often is the one presenting the defense's side. So we get the prosecution out of the left, and then the left, as the prosecution, then tells us what the defense says. How about you let the defense defend themselves? But we don't get that. And I mean, as the youth do not get that. I mean, I guess here I am trying to show as many of the different sides, but there's very few of you listening, so... Hopefully that's helpful. Please check out this book. So most women today do not have husbands. Okay, this is all about breaking up the family, destroying this traditional unit to create this egalitarian dream, which is never going to happen. And if it does, heaven help us. Check out, if you got time, Kurt Vonnegut's Harrison Bergeron. It'll only take about 10, 15 minutes of your time to read what happens when, instead of equality lifting us all up, the only way we really realize equality is to bring us all down. And so check out Harrison Bergeron's book. Anything from Kurt Vonnegut's absolutely amazing. You better check it out now, and you better buy those books now before our leftist egalitarian overlords burn all of his books, because believe you me, his books will be the first on the list to get burned. Absolutely. So you better get Slaughterhouse-Five, Dead-Eye Dick, you name it, anything by Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. Get it now. Because when the leftists take over, those things, if they don't burn them, they'll just go on Google Reader and they're just going to digitally rewrite all those books. So this Thomas Sowell explained visually. Check out his books. Check out the YouTube video clips. I'm just here to present some visual aids to help you understand some of these ideas. Hopefully, I'm helping you out. Subscribe, share, like the videos. Hopefully, this didn't sound like too much of a conspiracy-related video. We're mainly talking about, I don't even know. We're talking about somebody.